Here we are. We did it, right? We've been working on a to-do app, a to-do app that has a back end and a front end. It was part of a challenge that I received a long time ago. And we worked through some videos to set up our backend, right? Our server where we store that information into an SQLite database. And then the previous videos, we set up our React app. We needed a couple of videos there because it was a lot, right? We had to do a bunch of different things, but not so much that it wasn't achievable. And now we have this really ugly looking app where I can go and add stuff, okay? And if I refresh, it all just stays there. It's all working great, okay? But it looks ugly. So we want to make this better. And that revolves around CSS, okay? So CSS is what we're going to focus on in this video. We're going to focus on two ways of doing CSS inside of React. The first is going to be global styles, where we can target anything on the page, anything at all. If it exists inside of the HTML, we can style it using global styles. And then we're going to look at something called CSS Modules, which works very much like global CSS, but is more localized. I don't want to say scoped. Scoped is the wrong word here, but it is namespaced in a way where you can use the same class name multiple times in different files, and they won't butt up against each other. You won't have styles from one component overlapping onto styles from another component. Not usually something that I have to deal with because naming things, the way that I name things kind of saves that, but for some people, they might find that to be a more comfortable experience, okay? So let's get on to the global styles. We jump into our code. We have all this good stuff. Inside of our front end, we're going to go into the source, and we're going to create a new file called app, capital A, app.css. That's it. I like to name my files after the components that are importing them, okay? So in this case, because these two are associated, I'm going to use app.css. I could have used index.css, wouldn't have hurt anything, but as a matter of practice, I'm going to do it this way, okay? And then inside of the app.jsx, we import that. Just the same way as the other ones, but there is no named or default export. We just get all that goodness directly. So app.css. This isn't really going to do anything because there is nothing in there to do that with, right? To change the styles. But let's start playing around and see what happens, okay? So inside of app.css, I'm going to create a body tag. This is where we add our top level font styles. So font, I'm going to make it 1.5 M. I want it to be a little bit bigger, right? It's just a to-do app. Doesn't fill the whole page. So I'm going to make it 1.5 M sans serif. Right there, it's going to refresh. A little bit chunkier, a little bit nicer. Everything is looking kind of cool, okay? The next thing I want to do is add main. Now the main tag we haven't seen yet. It is where your main content exists. And the browser will look for the, not the browser, sorry, the search engine, Google, assistive technologies will also look for this. It is the main content, right? So you might have ads or navigation or other stuff. But for this, main is where the majority of your actual content exists. And for us, that's the whole app, okay? So I'm going to put it in main. We have to do a little bit of work here in a second, but we will see this. So I want to set this to max width, okay? Whenever we deal with widths, I don't like setting fixed widths and height, okay? If it's a percentage, it's not a problem to use just width, but because I'm going to set this to 500 pixels, that is a fixed width. And if I don't set a max width on that, right, then it might break on mobile, okay? So I like to do max width, and then right above it, I usually put width of 100% or something like that. So a percentage with a max, okay? So on big browsers, it's not going to hurt anything. On smaller browsers, it's going to always be 100%. And when it gets too big, it will stop at 500 pixels. That's the whole point here, okay? Then from there, we set a margin of auto, okay? And by doing auto here, we are going to set both the left and the right so that it centers really nice. There are times where this can actually go top and bottom center too. This is not one of them. You need to use display flex or display grid, okay? So only left and right on this one. We can save it, and we will see absolutely nothing, which is exactly right, because I said we had to do a little bit of work, okay? So over to our code inside of index.html. This div right here, okay? I'm going to grab it. I'm going to grab both those and change it to main. While I'm here, I'm also going to change title, just as a matter of practice. Should have done that earlier, right? To do app, I save it, and now it's in the middle. It also changed our title, okay? So it's in the middle. It's all good. And if this shrinks, it should... Oh, that's as small as Chrome is going to let me do it. So what I need is my developer tools right here. And I think, is it right here? Yeah. So I can shrink this down. You can see it wraps nice, right? It's not breaking. This might not be true later on, but at the very least, I can be sure that something works. Okay. Turning that back, we don't actually need the developer tools for this right away, but let's keep going, right? Let's keep going. So right over here, we can get rid of this index.html. And what's next? It is, well, top to bottom, it is this H1, right? So H1, we want that to be text align center, just like this. If you aren't getting those really nice tab completions, right? I type TAC, and the first highlighted one is text align center, at which point I can hit enter and it completes. If you aren't doing that, you'll have to type it manually. Sorry, okay? But yeah, text align center right there. The next one we should do is probably the inputs and the buttons, right? Because that's right there, inputs and buttons. We are going to hide this label in a second, but stay with me. Inputs and buttons first, okay? So input, let's actually do both at once, just like this, to make it easy. And background color, okay? The background color is going to be, yeah, it's going to be white. That's perfect. Now, as soon as I save this, you're going to notice that everything kind of goes away, right? We lose the nice rounding on there and some of the spacing. It looks kind of ugly. These are all, when you change one thing on the input or a button, it kind of gets rid of all of that good styling. I'm not sure why. That's just something that browsers have always done. So we need to add a lot more style. Let's go and do that. Right over here, background color, maybe that border, we want it to be 1 pixel solid black. Just as a matter of practice, I'm going to change these to actually be black because it's easier to read instead of this hex code. Black and white, brilliant, okay. Border radius, okay, not border right, border radius like this of 5 pixels, excellent. Save it. Let's go back and look. It's starting to look a little bit nicer now, right? We can improve that still, okay? So just for this practice, we're going to set color to black as well. And, padding. Padding is what we want, not padding auto though. I don't know why it went that. I want it to be 0.5 em, which means that it is 0.5 of whatever our root base font size is, right? Which would be 0.75 em, I guess, right? Save it, go back. Everything is looking a little bit nicer. You'll notice that the fonts in here don't line up with the fonts outside, right? That's because inputs and buttons don't inherit their parent font sizes. It's one of the few places where this happens. So we actually do need a little bit of extra inside of here. It is called font size. I get to it using FZ in my tab completion. So font size. And we're going to set that to inherit, okay? Which means that now everything gets really chunky in a hurry. These buttons, these delete buttons, are a little bit much for my liking. We'll come back to that. I would like a little bit more on the border though, just like this. That feels a little bit better, okay? So right here, we have some good styles, right? We haven't really done a lot more. We can, but let's go and commit, okay? Before we get too far along, right over here, we can jump out of this, get status. We have that index, the app. We can check the diff on that. For some reason, it uppercase doc type. That must be my editor. I did not do that. But you can see that I changed the title, I changed the div to main, and I added that import statement. That's all that's in here. And then, of course, all of my CSS down in here. So let's go and do that. Git add dot git commit -m -m like this style. Style for the front end. What else would it be except the front end, right? And add starter styles, because we're going to add a lot more to this. So this is just getting it started, okay? Excellent. Let's go and add some more. I want to hide that input. Now, in order to do that, I have random tabs in here. Brilliant. Things that I was playing with earlier, but not related. So there is a way to hide this in an accessible way. And that's important, because if I just set this to display none, which is very common, display none, accessible technology will not pick it up. So people that need it for reduced vision will not see it. It will not be read to them, okay? And we don't want that. We want it to be read out when people are using voiceover or something like that. And we want it to be hidden for people that maybe don't need it, okay? But we always want some sort of a label in here. So yeah, we need to do a little extra work. And what I do is I go CSS accessible hide. I've done this before, so it's already in my history. CSS accessible hide, I click on that, and I usually pick one of the first ones. You'll see a bunch in here, right? There's something from Ionic, CSS tricks, looking pretty solid. Scroll down a little bit. Scott O'Hara does amazing work for accessibility stuff. Has a whole article on it, but if you scroll down, he's got this little snippet, which we can just copy and paste, okay? Right down here, I'm going to put it at the bottom. It is a class, okay? So something that isn't focused or inactive, it's going to hide it. We're going to copy that, save it, and go over to my input, okay? Which is in components, AddTodo, index, and we have this label, okay? Add a to-do. So class name, this will be our first class. SR only. SR is for screen reader, okay? So screen reader only, very popular class name. Now we go back, close this, and it is gone. It's still there in the markup, so I can still find it, right? It's right here. Not focused, not hidden, but it is there. So accessible technology will be able to hopefully find it, okay? With that, we can commit, right? Let's go and commit really fast. So git status, git diff, we have the accessible hide, yes, just like that. And we attach it to the label, which is perfect. Git add dot, git commit -m, style front end, add accessible hide. Excellent. Okay, let's keep going. We added that label. Let's go and style the checkboxes. Now I'm going to tell you right away that styling checkboxes is a chore. There's just no way around it. And what you'll find is that most people will hide the checkbox and display an image. And based on whether the checkbox is checked or not checked, it will display one of two images, right? And that's how traditionally people get custom looking checkboxes. For us, we don't really need that. We are going to tack it in really fast just up here. So I'm going to go and put that input in there, okay? And I'm going to set it to type equals checkbox, okay? I did not need the quotes here. Quotes are sometimes optional. I also did this totally wrong, so let's go and cut that out. This should be square brackets, not parentheses, okay? Because I'm targeting this attribute. It is an attribute selector, okay? Now inside of here, we can style this up. The quick and easy way is just to use zoom 1.5, okay? And what that'll do is it will, it'll scale the image, okay? So it will zoom in on just that image, which looks like this, right? It's just a little bit more chunky. If I zoom in, it looks nice. It doesn't look nice on every browser. And if you look at this in something like Safari, it might look just a little bit soft because Safari uses a raster image, which means that it's pixels, which is very weird to me, right? Why not use something like an SVG? If you don't know what I just said, that's okay. It's SVG is better for this sort of thing, okay? Some research for later if that interests you. But for now, it's a little bit bigger, looks nice. It would be nice if we could color this, right? They all default to this blue, right? There are ways to do that. So way up here inside of body, we have a couple things. We can use accent color, okay? And we can change this to whatever that is. So if I hit this, now it's black, okay? I check it off, it's black. I uncheck it, it's gone. It would also be nice if I could change the color of the caret. I absolutely can. It defaults to black right now, but later on we're going to add some flair to this, some color. So a little quick tip here is that we can go caret color and also set that to black, which does absolutely nothing right now, but in a second it will. Stay with me, okay? So we have the zoom, we have some color. Maybe we should add a hover state to this button because there's no way to know that you can actually click it. Okay, whoops, I just didn't really mean to delete that, but that's okay. There we go. So yeah, let's add a little bit of style to the buttons. Okay, right over here, I'm gonna put it underneath the input. So let's start with the hover. Okay. Button hover just like this. And the way that I like to do this is I like to use a background image. Now we've already set background color, right? Background color is white. So if I want to replace that, I could just go background color of say silver and save it. And now when I hover, it looks pretty okay. The problem with doing it this way is that when I change the color of this image, right? I'm gonna do some styling here, and it would be nice if it picked up the background color. If there is a background color other than white or black, it would be nice if it picked up on that color. Okay. So I do not use background color. Instead, I use background image, which feels very weird, but stay with me. Okay. And inside of here, I use linear gradient, okay? Now the linear gradient takes two colors, and usually these colors would be different because you want it to be a gradient from one color to another. But there's nothing stopping us from using the same color for both, right? So I could go and put silver in here and silver in here, like this, and it will do exactly the same thing. But it gets even better because I can change these to have an opacity, okay? And for this, I'm going to use something called HSLA. You could also use RGBA, okay? And I'm going to make that 0% with a comma, 0%, and I think I wanted 0.2, okay? Copy this out. That last argument is the most important. The 0.2 is the opacity, okay? So right here, I save it, and now I get that thing, okay? But if I go in here and change it, let's go and change say the background color to be salmon. Okay. Took me a second to think of a color. There it is, salmon, right? Now it's there, but see, it doesn't get rid of that color. It just makes it a little bit darker, which is what I'm going for here. Obviously, salmon is not a good color for this. So let's change that back to white just for a second. Okay. And we will save that. So if I wanted to ever change this, this is good to go. I do have to change it in 2 places though. So maybe we want to take this out and make it our first variable. Okay. We use 2 dashes for these. This is a custom property. People refer to them as variables. And we're going to call it hover color. This can be any name that you want. Make it useful. Okay. Hover color. That's what I did right there. Semicolon. And then down in here, we go var and we go dash dash hover color. Okay. Copy this, paste it over this, and nothing should change, which is okay because that's where we want to be. But now if I ever needed to adjust this to something darker, as an example, right? Now I only need to change it in one place. It's very hard to screw up when you only have one variable hiding in one place, which is why we like to do it this way. Okay. I'm going to change that back. Point 2, brilliant. We've done some stuff. I want to do one more thing. I really like having the finger cursor, right? The pointer. Right now it's just the arrow, right? But I really like having that pointer cursor. You can get to that using cursor : pointer. Brilliant. That way we have some styles. Okay. Sounds like a good place to commit, right? Let's go and do that. So over here, get status, get diff, all of our fancy input and button colors. Excellent. Git add dot, git commit dash m, style front end, add input and button styles. Good. Okay. I forgot. I did forget something. See this blue ring here? We can change that too, right? So right down here, we just go : focus, and then we change it. It's actually on outline, right? So maybe that outline should be, it's all the same properties as border. So 2 pixels, solid, black. Okay. Just like that. Now it's nice and chunky when we are jumping through. Excellent. Okay. While we're here, let's go and change some things. We have a lot of black in here, right? A few places where we have just a lot of duplicate code, and I already showed you that having it in one place is better than having it all over the place. Okay. We do that way up here. So : root. This is where we like to do this. I recently heard that maybe this isn't the best place, but I'm still doing it. I'm going to have to reread that. Okay. Make sure that it's a good spot. Let's change this to black, just like this. What else? The border, right? We've used border of 2 pixels twice. So let's go and set 2 pixels. And I think the border radius, that'll show up in a couple places too. So let's go and break that out. Okay. Border radius, just like that, 5 pixels. Okay. So we have these, we can go and use them, which means that all of this black, we just go and grab it all, back it out, type var dash dash color. Okay. And then everywhere we have, oh, see, I went too far. I actually updated this. So let's go back, change this to black. Okay. 2 pixels, same sort of thing. It's going to show up in a couple places. So let's go var dash dash border. But again, we need to change this one in the root back to 2 pixels. helping us out. I think there's only one spot where there's border radius right now. We're going to see that again later on, but right here, var -- border radius, okay? And at this point, everything should look pretty much the same, right? We haven't really done any magic, okay? While I'm here, I want to change this placeholder, okay? Not the text, but the color, okay? Because that way, anytime we change all of our colors, it's also going to change that. And let me show you what I mean since we're here already, okay? I'm going to change this to dark cyan, okay? Everything goes except that this placeholder is still gray. Maybe we want that placeholder to also be the dark cyan, right? So we go in here, way down under input, keeping it in some sort of order. We have placeholder right there. Set that color to be var -- color right there. And the opacity to be 0.5, maybe 0.3. I forget what this is. Yeah, okay. You could play around with this a little bit, and it will get there. So when it's actually filled in, it's nice and solid. When it's not, it is faded back, which is perfect, okay? At this point, we have all of our global styles, so we can actually start doing stuff with this, okay? We have updated the text. You know what? Maybe we want that heading to be styling too, just freeforming it. So color, that variable of color. Excellent, okay? Now everything is a little bit more consistent or a little bit uglier, depending on how you feel about that, okay? But we've updated like placeholder stuff. We've updated the checkbox without getting too fancy about it. The buttons have a bit of a hover state on them. Everything is looking pretty solid. So let's commit, okay? Git status, git add dot, git commit -m, style front end, finish global styles, okay? Are we finished? I don't know. Are we ever finished? That is the real question. But at this point, we can start to jump into some of our other stuff. And this starts to get really, really fast. So the beauty of this system is, again, that everything is namespaced, but we don't need a lot of extra space, a lot of extra style, because most of our globals have captured that, okay? So really fast, over into code. We no longer need app.css or really any of this. Instead, we're going to go into components, and inside of AddTodo, we're going to add a new file. Now, again, this is why I like using folders, because everything is going to sit next to each other, okay? Index.module.css. The dot module is important, okay? Don't change the name on this. You can change index to whatever you want, but .module.css is kind of required for this, okay? Now, inside of here, the naming convention is a little bit different. So we'd probably use dashes. I like to use, what is I forget what this style of capitalization is. Pascal case, I think, right? But I like to use this because in a second, we're going to use this like an object in JavaScript, okay? Technically, it's not CSS in JavaScript. It actually does collapse down to a CSS file, but the way that we use it is very JavaScripty, okay? And there are reasons for that. So right here, we can set our background color to deep pink, sure, okay? We have that file. Over in the index file, index.jsx, we can import that, okay? Just like this, .index.module.css, okay? Except that we don't just do it this way. We actually import a default export. We can call this whatever we want. It didn't really have a name on the other side, but Most people will call it CSS or style. Okay. And now we can get information from that file based on this CSS, based on this variable. Okay. So down here in form, I add class name. Now, not class, but class name, because React has done it like this for so long. Okay. It used to be that class was dangerous. In other frameworks, they use class. They found a way around it. React has just stayed where it is because it's been so long. Okay. We send in a variable. So we need the curly brackets. We go css.addTodo. It didn't complete from the file. That actually came from the fact that we've used that in this file. Okay. So don't get your hopes up there. You might have to type something. But css.addTodo. We save this. We go back and we get that pink. Now, if we go and search on this, you'll see that it gives it this random hash on the end. And this is why name collisions can't happen, right? They change the name to protect anyone that's using this. So you could only use the class of button for everything. It would be kind of silly, but you could. And CSS modules would protect you from yourself, okay, by changing the name at runtime, at build time, okay? But deep pink is not what we want, so we can actually keep moving on, back to code, back into here. Now that we have that, I'm going to set this to display flex, okay? And then from there, I'm going to add some styles. So dot AddTodo input. Okay, this is going to be our input. We're going to set our border radius, not like that, sorry, border radius, there it is, to be our variables. Now, our variables are in the global scope, so we very much can reference them, okay? It's going to be border color, like this, followed by a 0, 0, and border color, okay? So what we're saying is the top left corner and the bottom left corner are the, border radius. Excellent. And then the top right and bottom right corner are 0. They are square, okay? Then inside of there, we have flex grow. So it is like this, and we set it to 1 so that it can grow to fill the space. It's not going to do that because we have not used this. So let's actually drag this over and close this for a second so that we can see what we're doing. Right here, I can add a class name of css.addTodo input, okay? Now it is huge. It actually doesn't look too bad that way. I don't mind it. But you can see that it's squared off these edges. Now, it is thick here because it gets the border of the button and the border of the input. So maybe what we should do is turn that border off. That would be border right of none, okay? Just get rid of it. It's gonna get rid of that, but we're about to lose these two corners too, so everything is okay. Let's go do that. Down here, AddTodo button, okay? AddTodo button, it has a it has that border radius, right? Let's go and copy it. Save ourselves some time, paste it down. Instead of the zeros being on the inside, they are on the outside. So 0 is here and 0, whoop, my cursor is bouncing around. There it is. 0 is here, okay? We can grab that, use it really fast. Button, right here, class name, curly brackets, paste it in. Need to use that CSS dot syntax, okay? But now, looking pretty nice, right? All of a sudden it's filling the whole space. We're doing the stuff. Do we need to make this bigger? Probably not, but let's do it anyway, okay? So over here, I want to change this a little bit. So background color is going to be our dash dash color, like this. And the color is now going to be white. I could have made that a variable, but there it is. And you can see that it still gets dark, right? Because that background image. So everything is working quite nice here. Maybe we want the flex basis to be a little bit bigger. When you're using flex, don't just slam a width in here, okay? Width will work, but your better option is to go with flex basis, okay? And this will set the start and by default the end, okay? If you don't set it to grow or shrink, it's not going to, okay? So maybe this is 100 pixels. Save it. It's a little bit more chunky. I like that. Maybe that font weight of bold. Nice. Maybe not. I thought I liked it, but maybe I don't. Okay. And there's that. Okay. You might notice that I did not quite sort these. I'm not really I can go either way on whether you do this or not, but if you want to keep the lines in order, you absolutely can. Very quick to do that. There are even tools inside of the editor to do that. So it's whatever you want, right? At this point, we have that input working. We should commit. So git status, git add dot, git commit dash m, styles, add to do, right? Because that's kind of what it is. It is a front end, but when we can get more specific with that little bit there, do it. So this is the add to do. Add to do styles. Okay. Brilliant. Moving on. Here we go. Let's keep going. Close this, close this. Let's move down the list to to-do list. To-do list is nice and fast. So put a new file in here, index.module.css, okay? To-do list. Now this is a list, so we want to basically knock those styles out, okay? List style right here, set to none. And what is it? Margin of 0, I think, is what we're looking for, okay? That will get rid of everything. No, it won't, because I didn't use it. So going over here, bringing that file in, and right here, class name. CSS dot, oh, see, it's doing silly things because I didn't import it. So import CSS from /index.module.css. And you see, here's what I like about using the index too. I have tools that will auto-generate a lot of these files for me. One of them is called plop.js. Very handy for scaffolding stuff. Because I use simple names, I can very quickly generate a lot of these files without having to think about what their name might be, okay? Plop is way more powerful than that, but the simplicity of this naming strategy has worked for me for a long time, okay? So I recommend that you give it a try, but for now, we are doing to-do list, okay? Save that, go take a look. Styles are gone, padding is the thing that I'm missing here, okay? So padding of 0, not margin. Good, save it. Excellent, okay? I feel like I'm missing something here. Maybe a little bit of space between these two things. Let's go and do that really fast. So margin top of 2M. Excellent. Just makes it look a little bit pretty, okay? Now, the only thing left to do is clean up these items, okay? So let's go do that really fast. Way over here somewhere. We can close this again. Oh, we should probably commit. Let's go do that. Git status, git add dot, git commit dash m, style to do list, right? To do list. Add to do list styles. Brilliant. Okay. Moving on. Add to do list. we're in here, new file, index.module.css. Okay. We are going to import that while it's fresh in our memory. So import CSS from /index.module.css. Okay. It's going to screen because we haven't used that, but that is okay. Okay. To do item, capital I item, just to keep it square in my mind, we are going to set this to grid. Okay. We could have built this with a table or something like that. That probably would have been more useful as a new developer exercise. But I'm going to use display grid because I really like it. Grid template columns. We aren't repeating anything, but at this point we have 3 columns and we get to pick their sizes. Okay, we have the checkbox, we have the label, and we have the button. Okay, so we set the checkbox to be, say, 50 pixels and the label to be auto, so it's going to take up whatever remaining space is there, and the button, which is 100 pixels. Okay, save that, go take a look. It is not doing anything because I have not used that. So way over here, li class name, back it out, css.todoItem. Save it. There it is. Okay. Things are getting very, very big here. That's very interesting. That was not happening before. But let's go take a look at some stuff. See if it settles down as I get going here. Okay. Align item center, save it. Yeah, there it is. So if you don't align items, it will stretch to fill the space height-wise, which is why it was blowing that out. If you go and look at this again in a different browser like Safari, that checkbox at that size would look like trash. So don't go too crazy with the zooming, okay? Leave it probably around here and it'll look kind of decent. Okay. So align items, text align left, just like that. I'm not sure that actually does anything. It doesn't because everything's already text align left. I was just playing around. Padding. We're going to do some stuff here. So let's set the padding to around 0.4 em. Okay. That's going to drive it in a little bit. But when we fix this, right, this button here and some other things, it's going to look really sharp. Okay. Margin, we want some margin on the top and bottom, but not the left and right. So we do 0.2 em and 0. Okay. 0 is the left and right. 0.2 em is top and bottom. And the last thing that we need is a border radius. Okay. So border radius, we already have that somewhere. That is -- border radius, like this. Now, you're not going to see anything here because there is no color. But my goal is to make each opposite one a different color. Not a different random color, just the odd ones, 1 and 3, will be odd colors to give it kind of a zebra effect. Okay. So we do that with .TodoItem nth. Let's type it right. Nth of type. Okay. Nth of type odd will give us all of the odd numbers. Okay. Background color of, let's say, powder blue. Yeah. Okay. And all of a sudden it starts to look really sharp. We have some nice space around all this stuff. We can still see the buttons, right? Looks really nice, I think. Let's keep going. As a point of interest, so to do item, and if the input is checked, okay? So if the input is checked, and this is why when we do this, we like to put the input before the label for checkboxes and radios. If the input is checked, then grab that label and do some text decoration, okay? Not none, we want line through, okay? So this is a strike through effect, which means that now it looks crossed off, right? We check it off, we do the thing, brilliant. That, I don't like that, but we'll come back to that in a second. Okay. So nice strike through effect. The last thing I want to do is clean up this button really fast. Okay. For that, we will add a brand new one. We'll call it TodoItem button. Okay. And we will set the color. Now we set the color somewhere else, but we can override that color using CSS. So we'll set that color to fire brick. Okay. Fire brick. And then we want to change the padding too, because the padding is wild. It's just way too much. Okay. So 0.2M, 0.5M. Excellent. That's not going to do anything. We need to use it. So back over to the index.jsx and right here, class name, back it out, css.TodoItem button. Save it, go back. Now everything looks really, really shiny. Okay. We should commit. Let's do that. So git status, git add dot, git commit -m, style, to do item like this, add to do item styles, right? That's what we've been doing. One more thing, and then we are done styling this. Okay. We need to style this, right? The empty state. So that's actually really easy. We go back to our to-do list styles. We already made the file right here, and we add a dot to-do list empty. Okay. Again, you can call this whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So color of salmon. Salmon. There it is. Okay. Margin top. Not point, 2M. This matches with this. Okay. So I could have joined these two things together, but just so that they line up visually. Okay. Margin top, display grid, place items. Is that what it is? Place items center. Okay. Display grid has this really handy feature where it will do both left and right, or sorry, left, right, top, and bottom all in one command. That's what place items does. Very handy. Padding, right? We need a little bit of padding. Shine it up a little bit. Border radius, right? We've seen that. We have a variable for that. -- border radius. Excellent. Okay. And of course, displaying the border. Okay. Now, quick thing here. If we do have a variable for this, so var of -- border, right? But we don't need to use this variable, right? We don't need to split it out and type salmon again. If we have color here and we leave this off, we can actually, it will pick up on it. So the default border color is whatever the text color is, okay? I realized that way over in app, down here somewhere where we had color and then we set up border color, we could have actually left that off, right? It doesn't hurt anything to be there, but it's extra typing. So maybe later on I might clean that up if I care. Okay. For now, we are back here. It is not showing up because we did not attach it. So right here, to do list item, back into index.jsx, class name, css.todolist item. Save it. Now it looks really shiny. Okay. We type something, we get that, we can clear it, we can delete it. Looks pretty nice, right? And we have all of this stuff. Now, a quick fix for this, okay? Maybe you don't really care about the highlighting showing while you're using keyboard, right? Or maybe you do. Sorry, right here when you're clicking it. With keyboard, it should always show up. But when you're just clicking around, maybe you don't want that focus state, right? You can change this. So way over here where it says focus, we can change it to focus visible, okay? Focus visible will only apply when it is, when someone's using a keyboard, in theory, It might change. But for now, you'll see that when I click in here, you don't see that anymore. So it doesn't do that. But when I tab through here, the thing still shows up. Okay. So if I click on it with the mouse, it's not there. When I tab through with my keyboard, it is there. Okay. Because it is useful. Maybe just not to people with, 100% eyesight, right? Of which there are probably none, if we're being honest. So this one turned into a longer one than I thought. Let's go and commit one more time and wrap it up. So git status, git add dot, git commit dash m, style, front end, add empty state. Yeah. Empty state and focus visible. Okay. Brilliant. And then of course, git log dash one line, just like this. And you can see all of the styles that we did. We started out with some global styles. All of those appear inside of that global style file. Okay. And they apply to everything. If it matches a tag or it matches a class inside of this file, it will work. Nothing about this file is going to be changed. And then we switched over to CSS modules. And inside of here, we can use any name we want because it's going to be changed just enough so that if we had to-do list in several different places in these files, they won't mess each other up. Okay. And of course, we went through and added some good variables and some useful stuff that we can use over and over again. But for the most part, it's looking pretty shiny, right? So we can do some stuff using that keyboard command all the time. We can check things off, delete something. It's looking really good. So where do we go from here? Well, the final thing to do is to get this React app working inside of our Express app. And then maybe some cleanup with some documentation and stuff like that. And we're going to take those on in the next video. Hopefully this all made sense. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.